So I'll finish off with oxalate and tea. There is a lot of indicator that people are having issues with teeth. To me, this makes a lot of sense because your teeth are being physically exposed to oxalate. I don't know if anybody here remembers how spinach has kind of a gritty feel. There's an awful lot of calcium oxalate in spinach. And so as you're chewing it, it's that crystalline oxalate is actually being released in part in your mouth. The mouth tissues can be absorbing it. And so we can have a certain amount of oxalate in our teeth. And I was very alarmed to read recently that they're thinking about using oxalate for teeth sensitivity. I thought, oh dear Lord, who came up with that idea? But we've had reports on the triangle oxalate group about things like teeth loosening up and that can happen, but that most people don't actually lose the tooth. Then the tooth root remineralizes essentially, but like as the oxalate's being lost from the tooth, you can have this, temporary issue of the teeth being looser. I did have a little bit of that, but I was lucky I didn't get anything where I had a really significant issue. And I'm not saying that people couldn't actually end up losing a tooth. I think that's absolutely possible, but we haven't had anybody on the group have that happen. The teeth can be a storage location though for oxalate. And so if you've got oxalate in the teeth and potentially, if there's been oxalate in the mouth and it's been absorbed by the tissues of the teeth, there could be a certain amount present in the bone. The first thing that I would think of is things like, maybe using a product that had high calcium for things like toothbrushing, but would not use hydroxyapatite. That's the one that's recommended because it's the form that's in the bone, but I wouldn't use that. I would use just kind of an ionic calcium if I could, because you want something that's easily absorbed and you want it to take the place of potentially a calcium oxalate molecule. So you're not necessarily trying to rough teeth up with something like hydroxyapatite, which can be kind of rough, but you're trying to get enough minerals here. So personally, I would probably do as much ionic kinds of calcium products where I might even use like an ionic drop where I put it under my tongue and let the tissues in the mouth really absorb it, as opposed to taking something where you're going to drink it or whatever and it's going to go down your throat. I'd want some of it to stay locally so the teeth themselves can remineralize and the tissues themselves can absorb some healthy calcium. And keep in mind that calcium and bone are the ones we always think of together, but there's a lot of magnesium in bone as well, and that a high protein diet or higher protein diet can be really helpful because your bone matrix is all protein. So 50% of your bones is just this protein matrix. If you don't have enough protein in your body will sort of rob Peter to pay Paul, as the expression goes. So I suspect that some of this modern day phenomenon of we get shorter as we get older, I suspect that's lack of protein in the diet, because the body's going to protect urgent systems which are required for survival, like the organs, for instance. But the bones don't have to be full length for us to survive, right? They could get a little shorter. So interestingly enough, my husband's lost a little bit of height, and he's actually a little younger than me, so he's not very happy about this. And I have lost none. I suspect it's the difference in how we eat, because he doesn't eat as much protein as I do, based on his size. So I really have a bit of a bias, I'm going to say, towards making sure you're getting enough good bioavailable protein. And then there are some other minerals other than calcium and magnesium, which are indicated for bones. So there's some big epidemiological studies which show that boron can be helpful. So you may want to take a combination of things that are bone supportive, but I would not take too much of the kinds of bone builder products where they recommend hydroxyapatite. You can take some of that because your body may be able to use it, but too much of it, it's moving into your system as a crystal, potentially. And those kinds of inputs to our bodies read like inflammation for our system. So we want to be a little careful there. But yeah, as much as you could do topical to the mouth if you're having problems with the teeth, I would absolutely do that. And there's a couple of products I know of that are lower dose but ionic, where you could take the drops and put them in your mouth and hold them under your tongue. And that would be where I would go.